Hi everyone, today we are in the Wye Valley and we're at Tintern Abbey. Tintern Abbey, an amazing place. It has stood here for nearly 900 years in one form or another since the monks first came to settle. It has been transformed over those years, from the early days of the wooden chapel right through to the grand splendour of the Middle Ages, and then of course the dissolution of the monasteries and this amazing ruin that we see today. But throughout it all, Tintern has become a focal point for so many people, and today it's a focal point for us and for you as we share our journey into history and into the grandeur of the ruins of the present day.
Oh look, here we are, we're at the abbey. There are some stones there, so before we go to the abbey, let's have a look at these stones. They look lovely. I assume they're all part of the abbey. Let's see what they look like close up. Oh yes, look at all those. I think this is a job for Phil and his Gorilla Glue. What do you think, Phil?
I reckon we could do it.
Yeah.
I was just reading a notice as we came through the entrance, and they were saying in the 1770s there was a massive move to get all the rubbish, because you could hardly get through the buildings for all the rubble and rubbish, but they took it and just dumped it, and they lost an awful lot of the architecture. But obviously I'm assuming these are bits that they have salvaged from that major cleanup.
Like a big construction kit. Anyway, it's very interesting, but I want to see bits like this actually in situ, so come on. There's the top poking over the wall. Let's go see what we can find. Oh, look at this. It's so exciting. Wow, it is huge. Oh, look at that. Isn't it amazing? Can you imagine just how wonderful this looked when there were glass in all those windows? It's looking pretty wonderful now. Oh, let's have a look through here. Ooh. It's a bit dark. Let's go in through the main entrance. You can see where a building used to be extended on here. You can see the arch, and then there's another arch lower down that is gone, and another little window should be over this side. Let's have a look. I think that's been filled in on the sides. That window's long gone, and another door and windows right the way up there. And look at that ceiling. And then we're going through that doorway, and there's even more to see. Oh, look at that. Wow. Here's a stone in the wall saying 1904. That's not from when this was originally built.
No, definitely not.
No?
No, we're talking the 1130s when they established this, not the 1900s, that's for sure. And of course, you may notice some roped off areas today. That's because there was a red notice on the Cadw website saying there are necessary works going on, certain areas are not safe. But I'm sure we're going to get to see some splendid bits and pieces before this visit's over anyway.
Right, let's go for a walk down here. Oh, there's a little door. I wonder if that is the room where we saw through the little window. Let's have a look. It's Spooky dark. Oh, it's not too bad. Gorgeous ceiling again. And we got an arch there. And aha, it looks like it used to be a chimney, and you know what happens when we see a chimney? You have to look to see if you can see the light. Nope. Let's have a look. Oh yes, this is where we were looking the other direction.
We're actually in the monks' dining hall.
Oh, there we go. Well, there's not much dining going on at the moment. It's just a little bit muddy.
There's still a little sign on the wall that gives away the fact it was, once upon a time, perhaps 700-800 years ago, the monks' dining hall.
Oh, the frater, I would have thought. There are parts of the arches that are missing, and apparently they are looking at every piece and seeing if they can put it back into place.
That is going to be some puzzle.
It is, and they can add little bits and pieces that they need, or in some cases lots of bits and pieces that they need, but there will be some original stone going back in. What happens when monks get sick or old? The answer is they build an infirmary where they can all stay, and this was built on the theme of like another church really, and in each of the cloistered arches they had a bed. But then eventually, as the years rolled by and the centuries, they decided that they would partition off each of the little areas into rooms. So each monk would have a tiny little room with a fireplace and a little cupboard. Nothing more, but a lot more comfortable and cosy in the winter than having one big open space. A little window. So where are we now? You can see what this looks like. Let's have a look over on this sign here and it'll tell us what room we're in. We're in the kitchen. I wonder what sort of meals they prepared back in medieval times. Well, I'm going to take you now from this kitchen, which is rather sparse at the moment, to my kitchen, and we're going to try cooking something from a medieval recipe. See how it turns out. Could be good, could be awful. I've decided to try making some medieval gingerbread. Now, it's not the sort of gingerbread that we know nowadays. I'm going to need some bread. It says a whole loaf. I think this is probably twice the size a loaf used to be, but we'll see how it goes. And I need some black pepper, some cinnamon, some ginger, and some honey. First thing I got to do is turn this into breadcrumbs. So I'm going to pop it into my food processor, and then we'll work from there. Now I need a cup of honey. Ooh, look at all that. Oh, I don't know if there's a whole cup in this. No, I would say that little pot, which I thought would be plenty, is actually only about 2/3 of a cup. Well, we'll just have to make a little bit less. So we need to put that into the pan. Now we need to bring the honey to the boil. And it's boiling nicely, but being careful not to burn it. We're going to knock it right down and just simmer it for 5 to 10 minutes. Because I'm impatient, I think it'll be fine. So while my honey is simmering, I've got my spoon measure. We need 3/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, so we'll go for 1/2 teaspoon. And 1/4 teaspoon. How accurate is that? Then we want 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. I know, I don't understand why, but sure it's going to be delicious. And just 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. I would have thought you needed a lot more. Give it a mix. Flatten all the lumps because my ginger's a little bit lumpy. Now I'm going to add all the spices. The smell is starting to fill the air. Mix that all in. Now now we need to add breadcrumbs a handful at a time. And we want to get this to form a rollable dough. If you're doing this, be very careful because this is still quite hot. I'm adding 2 lots of breadcrumbs now because I can do it much more efficiently using my hand. Sorry about all the clattering, I'm a very noisy cook. And you want to knead it until there are no dry breadcrumbs showing. And it really is starting to look like a bit of a gingerbread dough now. Give it a last knead, and then you want to roll it out into about 1 inch deep. Into 1 inch deep, I suppose what I mean is to 1 inch deep. It really doesn't stick. You'd think with all that honey in, it would be very sticky, but it isn't. Now you cut it into 1 inch squares. Smelling wonderful. You have the option, in the medieval times, they would then dust this with either some cinnamon or mix the cinnamon with 2 parts sandalwood. You could do that. Nowadays, if you wanted to, you could use some icing sugar, I suppose, or powdered sugar, I think you call it in the States. And that is basically it. There's no cooking now. It's all done. That's what they look like. But I think we need to give this a bit of a taste test. So let's take one in and see what Phil thinks of these. Hello, my little guinea pig. I want you to try some of my medieval gingerbread.
Ooh.
And tell me what you think.
It looks nice.
It does, doesn't it?
Definitely has a smell of cinnamon.
It does, doesn't it? More cinnamon than ginger, I thought.
Let's try it. It's pleasant. I would say it's half cinnamon, half ginger. I'd say you can definitely taste the cinnamon. And it's quite bready.
Yes, it is. Very bready. I think for my personal taste, I would add a lot more ginger.
I think it's possibly to do with the price of spice back then. Because I don't know about ginger and... what was the other one?
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon. But I know there were spices that they actually traded with because they were so valuable. So that's possibly why their measures were smaller. But it's definitely sweet, tasty, and I'll be happy to be medieval for the moment and eat them.
Well, we leave Phil munching away. He looks happy. Are you happy?
I'm happy. But as you say, I've got a lot more to share about Tintern Abbey, so we'd better get back.
Okay, off we go.
Well, there we are, medieval cooking in a modern kitchen. I wouldn't fancy Caroline's chances of cooking in the monk's kitchen these days, as it's a rather open plan space with no facilities. But here we are back in Tintern Abbey, and what an amazing place. And to think that after it fell prey to the dissolution of the monasteries under Henry VIII, it just stood virtually forgotten, abandoned, the stonework being taken away, the lead being used in other buildings, and like so many other of the properties, just falling apart. And as we mentioned earlier, it was in the 1700s they started to dig out all the rubble that was filling the spaces that we are able to wander through today. But one of the things that put this place back on the map was a company called Bucks Brothers, and they made an engraving of Tintern Abbey in the 1730s. And it caught people's imagination. They all wanted to know where this place was. And then in 1770, a chap by the name of the Reverend William Gilpin wrote his account, a travel log really, of his journey through the Wye Valley. And that became a bestseller because a strange number of things came together at that moment in history. Because you had the Napoleonic Wars, you had the French Revolution, and you had an awful lot of well-to-do folks in Britain who had got used to popping over to the continent in order to take their holidays and see the picturesque and the sublime. Now they were searching here in Britain for such places, and they found one in Tintern and Tintern Abbey. But while William Gilpin did sing the praises of this amazing abbey and this glorious valley here in Wales, I have to be honest, I didn't hold with all of his opinions, because he seemed to suggest that it would be improved if they were to take a sledge to it and demolish it a little bit more. Let me just share with you his exact words. Tintern Abbey, the most beautiful scene of all, but a number of its gable ends hurt the eye with their regularity and disgusted by the vulgarity of their shape. Well, we're all entitled to our opinion, but personally I don't agree with the Reverend Williams, and I'm glad no one took a hammer to this place and reduced it any further than it was, because today it stands glorious as a testimony to human endeavour and to the capabilities of men and women when they wish to express their sense of the grandeur of the world, the cosmos, the universe, nature, and even God himself.
This way to the church. Ooh, anything in there? Let's have a little look. Ooh, it looks like an office. Oh no, there are some bits and pieces in there, so they must do some sort of classes in there telling you about historic monuments. Just a guess.
Nice solid set of doors.
Oh yes, I don't think they're original, but they're very solid.
They're well built.
Look, there's another stone with 1904 on.
We're going to have to find out the connection. I wonder if there was a restoration programme at 1904. Wonder if that's what went on here. Something significant went on at some point around the 1900s.
We'll keep an eye out for signs and see what they say.
Indeed.
Right, here we go. Into the main Abbey building. Oh, wow. Look at this. That is amazing. I don't know if it looks bigger than any other cathedral or abbey we've ever been in because of the open sky. Maybe that's affecting the way I see it, but it just seems very big. You can see all the windows along there. I can see where a fabulous stained glass window would have been, but I think that's just as gorgeous without the stained glass, seeing all that scenery behind it. And then up, over the arches, and into the sky.
I would imagine if we could go closer so that the chimney pots of the house don't show and you simply get the mountains and the sky.
Very majestic.
That would be just stunning. I also find it quite weird to be stood here with an overhang of the building above us.
Let's have a look. Oh, there's another big window there.
See this?
And, ooh, that doesn't look very safe, does it?
No, that's right above my head. And I am placing great confidence in the people at Cadw that this is safe. Well, there's the answer to the 1904 stones. Our guess was right. Date stones mark the conserved stonework of the early 1900s.
There we go, now we know.
Because see?
Oh wow, look what it used to look like.
I gotta be honest, the ivy looks wonderful, but I'm sure it was doing a great deal of damage. Yes. And here on this picture we see what I think is something quite amazing, because 900 years of history being maintained by the most modern of technology. Look at that, isn't it?
Ancient and modern together.
Yeah, just the one serving the other and preserving for all of us. This will be here for 1,000 years. Our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will come here, and in 100 years' time this will be 1,000 years old and still a place of splendour. Amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing.
Oh, look at these carvings. Now that one's not terribly clear, but look at this one. You can see the oak leaves on there. They're in really good condition. Always makes me wonder if the stonemason, when making one of these, what he would feel like if he chipped away and suddenly the stone cracked off. Perhaps a huge lump. I think I'd cry. We've got a few other patterns too. There's a little hole there. I wonder what that was for. And there's the bottom of a column, which then disappears and then reappears, going up to the ceiling.
Something I've learned since I've been here, this amazing building was built by the Cistercian monks, and it seems that all the abbeys that were built by the Cistercian monks were dedicated to Mary, the mother of Jesus, and somewhere within the abbey there would have been a statue to celebrate Mary. In 2007, the sculpture that stands beside me was commissioned by Cadw, and they had Philip Chadfield to carve this, and here it stands.
Unfortunately, we can't go any further, but we can hang the camera over and have a look. Oh, look, another fabulous view out of the window, or the non-window. Look at that. And that arch is so high. I don't think I've ever been in a cathedral with an arch that high. I could be wrong. It just feels absolutely rocketing through to the clouds. Look at that. And there, I can't get over there, but I can lean over with my camera and you get to see that view through that amazing arched window. And another arch with lots of arched windows. Absolutely gorgeous. And as you can hear, the children are having a whale of a time running around this place. And there's the back window.
It's incredible to think, as we are walking through these majestic ruins that have stood now for 500 years here in the Wye Valley, attracting people during centuries as they've come to do what we're doing today, to marvel at the wonder of what people built. That originally, in 1131, the Cistercian monks that settled here were quite content with a wooden chapel. In fact, the first abbot, Abbot Henry, he was a converted robber and was famed for the tears he shed at the altar far more than the grandeur of any building that he ever commissioned. But in 1269, with the favour of the Marcher Lords, work began, and out of this area rose the majestic things that we see today. Yes, the tourists started to come in their droves, and in 1792 they were joined by the young artist Turner, who was only 17 years of age when he visited this place, but he made pencil drawings as he took in the grandeur of the ruins that then formed watercolours, which a few years later were displayed in the National Gallery. And it wasn't just artists, but also great poetry has been born out of this valley here in Wales. Yes, in 1798, William Wordsworth returned here. He'd been here 5 years earlier, but on this occasion, he returned with his sister Dorothy, and he wrote what has become a very famous poem with what I think is a rather mundane title, lacking in imagination, as he called it, Lines Written a Few Miles Above Tintern Abbey. In the poem, he never mentions the abbey itself, but I think to everyone it's clear that the vision he had of the abbey, he translated into nature, just as the vision of nature seen by the Cistercian monks were translated into the grandeur of the abbey. Let us share just a few of the lines from that poem with you now as we take a look at this ruin, because it's a very long poem, but we've chosen just a few lines which I think will give you a real idea of how William Wordsworth felt about life, about nature, and I'm convinced about his visit here to Tintern all those years ago. 5 years have passed, 5 summers, with the length of 5 long winters, and again I hear these waters rolling from the mountain springs with a soft inland murmur. Once again do I behold these steep and lofty cliffs that on a wild secluded scene impresses thoughts of more deep seclusion and connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky. And I have felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling in the light of the setting suns and the round ocean and the living air and the blue sky, and in the mind of man, a motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. Therefore am I still a lover of the meadows and the woods and mountains, and of all that we behold from this green earth, of all the mighty world. Of course, when Turner and Wordsworth were visiting this place, it wasn't as quiet as it is today. Caroline and I are here on a mid-March Sunday afternoon. The sun is shining, temperature's about 13 degrees. Yes, we've heard the sound of children playing, but by the largest part there is a sense of serenity here today. And like back in the 1700s, when crowds came in their boats carrying their picnics as they rowed up the Wye, and when they gathered here at Tintern Abbey, it was surrounded by beggars that were hoping to gain something from the wealthy that visited, and of course guides who were noisily trying to attract the attention of the folks as they arrived. So whilst the painting brings out its serenity, as does the poetry, I think the reality may have been something a little bit different.
This oak tree was planted to commemorate the coronation of King George V, 1911. It's a big one. You can tell it's been there a while, and I would imagine it's going to outlive me by many, many years. And it won't mind, because that is the view it will be looking at for centuries to come.
It's just incredible to think. The kitchens, the lodging houses, the infirmary, the huge abbey, just so much. So if this place was complete, it would just overwhelm us with the structure. And all built 700 years ago, and worship on this site for virtually 900 years. The mind boggles. And it has just been awesome to walk through it. I hope that in some measure what we're experiencing has been conveyed through the camera today. If it has, and you've enjoyed this visit with us, then please give us a thumbs up.
Doing, doing, doing.
And of course, if you know anyone who would enjoy travelling with us as we go around Wales and the United Kingdom and beyond, sharing the history and the beauty of the world around us, then please share it with all your friends. But most importantly, until the next time that we're out together, don't forget, have fun. Bye.
Bye.
And what they've done here was in 2007, they commissioned a sculptor. In 2007, they commissioned...
You're just trying to make bloopers.
I'm not, I'm just trying to talk.
It's super glove.